Welcome to Vacation Rental Mastery, where your host, Karan Narang, guides you through harnessing vacation rental investments. Whether you're new to vacation rentals or expanding your portfolio, this podcast fuels your path to freedom. Join us in this movement to transform your life. Ready for change and legacy building? You're in the right place. Let's embark on this freedom journey and master vacation rental investing together.
Ben, welcome to the podcast. You are on one of my first days of recording, so I'm looking forward to having you as a guest. Tell us a little bit about you, Ben. I know you've sold some businesses in the past, and you're looking for new ventures. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I live in. My name's Ben. I'm live over in Snohomish, Washington. So I wound up starting a home service company when I was 23 years old. Yeah. So, started a home service company. It was actually a carpet cleaning company, and scaled that up fairly large. And then I started a water damage restoration company and kind of combined those two things together into a large mecca company. And in 2022, I wound up bringing my company to market and partnered with a private equity group. And so for the last year, I've been working as an advisor to that company still. But then it just opened up a bunch of time for me to pursue additional business interests that I have. One of them being real estate, obviously, and and then some other business opportunities as well. So, it's pretty good.
No, that's awesome. Congratulations. So it sounds like you sold your business and you're acting as an advisor right now. And what I hear you saying is that you're looking for newer opportunities. You're obviously part of GoBundance, which is the mastermind we both belong to, and we're basically entrepreneurs, right? We find it hard to sit still. We find it hard to not do something new and innovative. So I get that part completely. So Ben, tell me, what was that pivotal point? Why and how did you decide I've built these businesses? Let me go sell it. Let me do something with it. What is that change that occurred?
I mean, honestly, man, I think it was just it was a market condition, right? So with interest rates getting so low, the cost of money to acquire companies getting so low, I think it really fueled a pretty high, opportunity for getting a high multiple on your EBITDA. So I just looked at it, it was a tough thing for me because I'd spent my whole, 15 years building that company, and everything from creating the brand to hiring every employee and every manual. And you just build really tight relationships with those people. And I think I really struggled with it, frankly, on whether I should do it or whether I shouldn't. But I just saw the opportunity, and I looked at what are the chances or the odds of this economic situation repeating itself in the future. And in my opinion, I don't think we're going to see another repeat of that exact scenario play out in our lifetime. And so because of that, I was able to exit the company for, a very successful multiple in our industry. And I don't have any regrets doing it. I think it was the right choice for my family and for me. And, there's a certain grind that you have, obviously, when you're running a company. And, part of the reasons I joined GoBundance, I think, was because as entrepreneurs, we get very tied into, our journey in business, and it can kind of suck us into where sometimes family, at least for me, family and hobbies and stuff really start to take a back seat. So for me, number one, it was an opportunity to have a large liquidity event, which was like, okay, cool. Number two is an opportunity for me to say, all right, my kids are, which I didn't mention, I've got 4 kids. So I've got a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14, and a 16-year-old.
Wow.
And, I just thought the most important thing to me in this chapter of my life is going to be spending a lot of time with my kids. So I thought exiting the company, putting some money in the bank, and then just my wife and I being able to focus more time together. And that, honestly, is why we're really interested in the real estate thing, because she's got a big knack for real estate. We do own some real estate right now, But man, I think it's exciting because I think we can do it together and build a real estate investment company together, and then also teach our kids that business. And so we just see a lot of upside to it.
It's very interesting you bring this up, and I'll say this because I came from a startup environment. I worked for a startup. We took that business and built a really, really successful business through it. We sold it about 3 years ago. The only shortcoming for me was that I was an employee. I did have stock options in the business. We sold it 3 years ago, and hey, don't get me wrong, I got a decent payout. It was good,
Yeah.
but what I realized is that what I traded in return was the time with my family. What I traded in return was probably not worth what I got paid out.
Mm,
And
yeah.
it was a hard learning for me. And I'm being, quite vulnerable here, so I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
It made a huge difference in our family life, on the relationships front, on the family front. I wasn't around. And
Yeah.
which is why I decided that I'm going to grow this real estate business to a point where I can dedicate my time to the family. So about 6-8 months ago, I made that conscious decision that I need to reconnect, I need to rebuild, I need to transform. Being a part of the startup and
Mm,
being a part of this business changed who I was as a person. And I basically decided I'm going to transform myself. And I basically spent 2023 in this transformation mode. And my theme for 2024 is elevate. We're taking things to the next level now. And it's been a game changer because I've spent so much more time with the family. I've prioritized them. I've prioritized my kids, and I can see that payback in no time. That built connection. The connection I'd lost for 10 years. My kids, I've got three of my own. They're 9, 9, and 11, and that lost connection was
yeah.
rebuilt so fast, and it's been amazing for me. So December
Mhm.
31st, that's 20 some days ago, was the last day of my W-2 employment.
Oh,
So
it's awesome, man.
yep. So you know what? I was helping someone else build their vision. I
Yeah.
did get paid pretty handsomely for it, but I took that and I said I'm going to change that game now because I'm going to go build my vision because you know what? I'm working on my freedoms now, right? And that's why I said I'm going to put out this podcast as well, is because this is people need to hear this message. People need to know and understand that if you go out, if you have the ability, if you have the resources and the mindset to truly step out of your comfort zone, go do something that is completely different and build your vision. If you can feel it, invest in yourself and build that vision, you have the ability to reclaim your freedoms. The freedom of
Yeah.
time, the freedom of money, the freedom of location, the freedom of relationships. I want to work with them. I don't want to work with them. These are not the people I want to work with, right? You have that choice,
Yeah.
or it's the freedom of the impact you're going to make. How big of an impact are you going to make? There's no handcuffs anymore. So the whole theme around this is how do you go back and secure those freedoms so that you can truly build the life you want to build. And that's where my whole focus is in 2024 and beyond. Let's go build that and make sure that we don't lose the time and the family and the relationships that are so important, right?
Yep.
Someone recently sent me a video that I listened to. I looked at, and there was a very deep meaning in it. They were they talk about how most things that we value in life because they're expensive or whatever actually don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Earl Nightingale said that. He said they don't mean anything, and the things that we should truly value, everything that we truly value is actually free. The people around you, the
Yeah.
relationships, everything we should be valuing is free, and everything we value is typically comes at a very high cost, but can be replaced very easily, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
anyway,
true.
it's been amazing. This journey for me has been amazing as well. So hey, congratulations! It looks like you're moving down the right path because I can imagine you built a business. It's a home service company. It's a restoration company. I'm sure there was a certain amount of time and effort required there. And the fact, and what people don't realize is when you decide you want to go in and invest in real estate, you have the opportunity of doing that in a hands-off manner where you truly can reclaim your time, right?
Yeah,
You do
exactly.
not need to spend all that time to do it because this is an asset that also makes you money when you're asleep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All people talk about is, hey, you're going to get that call from the tenant at 2 a.m. that the toilet's clogged. But listen, I also get the call from the bank at 2 a.m. saying my check's deposited. So you don't want to. So no, it's pretty amazing. So yeah, congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
So Ben, tell me, what's next for you? I know you expressed some interest in short-term rentals and investing in short-term rentals. Do you have any experience around it at all?
Yeah, we bought a we actually bought the home next door to us, which was, I told Bill, well, yeah, I told my neighbor, if you're ever going to sell the house, tell us before you do. We have 10 acres and we thought, man, if we could get that property and combine them, it's like 20 acres in Snohomish, which is great, prime area. So we wound up buying that house, and then my wife's brilliant, so we went in there and completely did a restoration on the home, turned it into a real classic farmhouse. It was built in 1890 originally.
Mm-hmm.
So we just really brought back that original farmhouse charm to it. And we built a wedding venue. I shouldn't say we. She built a wedding venue out of it, and we just, she I think she brought in 100,000 in revenue her first year with the wedding venue. And but then we started figuring out that we could Airbnb the property. And again, as soon as we flipped the switch on Airbnb, it was like crazy, bonkers. Like the amount of people that wanted to rent it was
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, since then we've rented it to a family member
Mm-hmm.
and had to take it off Airbnb. But it really interested us to, the thought of building a portfolio, of properties where we could do that. And so I mentioned in the email, we bought a building on First Street in Snohomish. There's a historic district,
Yep.
and on First Street. So we bought that building last year, and so we're going to convert all 6 units into an Airbnb, method. And man, I mean, the amount of revenue you can drive in from short-term rental as opposed to a long-term, and there's arguments on both sides, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
the dependability of long-term versus the fluctuations of short-term. But man, the amount of cash flow that you can bring in uh, is incredible with short-term rental. So we're really excited about that. I mentioned we have the commercial building that I still rent to Pure Dry Restoration. Good investment. And that's kind of where it is. So it's like we've dipped our toe in real estate, but we haven't really put the gas pedal down to make that a business. It
Yep.
was more of like hey, we could do this, we could do that, but we both agreed like let's make a business out of doing this. And that's something we're pretty excited about.
No, that's pretty awesome. And I don't know if we discussed this earlier, but I'm going to give you a little insight into what we do on our rentals, right?
Yeah.
Our top performing property is actually a wedding venue. So
Oh,
we have a
really?
property outside of Austin, and you can check it out on AA Stays. Adventure Awaits is our branding, and aastays.com, and you'll see the property outside of Austin, and it is by far our number one performing property, which pretty
Wow.
much single-handedly has allowed me to quit my job and sit here in front of you having this conversation. So it is a wedding venue. We do have it on Airbnb, and we do have weddings there. Last year alone, that property did close to 450,000 revenue.
That's awesome, man.
And honestly, that is the model we are pursuing for 2024. I actually have an offer out on a property right now, which we will do a very similar thing, similar model, and same thing. We're going to go and do this hybrid Airbnb, sleeps 20 to 30 guests and allows, anywhere between 60 and 120 guests to attend kind of an event. And
Wow.
honestly, it is bonkers. I agree with you. We get, I don't know, 10 inquiries a week on that property. And it has been a model that has worked so well for us to the point where if I had a property that was absolutely ideal for it, I would buy the property next to it to rent out to my relative and go convert that property into a wedding venue. So
That's interesting. So, I mean, to fit 20 to 30 guests in it, it's a large home, it sounds like, right?
yeah, it's a 7 bedroom home. So when you
Okay.
count the bunk beds and everything, and it's not too many. We've got only one room that has bunk beds in it. but
Yeah.
you can fit, some of the rooms are a little larger, so we got like two king beds in there, so you can fit in. It's not that hard. The property we're looking to acquire now, that we have on a or not have on a contract, we just put in the offer. We'll probably sleep somewhere between 30 and 35 people is my expectation,
Awesome.
and is now at a point where we can host probably between 100 and 130 people for events. And
Awesome.
and what we found is, our existing property can do a maximum of, I'll say, 70 to 75 people, but we are getting a lot of inquiries saying, can I have a wedding venue for like 120 people? So we think
Yeah.
that sweet spot for this Airbnb and wedding venue combination is somewhere in that 100 to 120 guests is what we think is the right spot. So we're in the process of acquiring those properties. If this works out, um, we will probably launch a fund in the second half of this year, doing that all across the country.
Really?
Yeah, that's the goal.
Big time, man. I like it.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, it works. And honestly, what it's all about, and I try to try to help people understand. You can go buy a short-term rental, awesome, cash flow's great. But what
Mm.
people tend to forget is they give up. Remember the theme of freedoms that we spoke about?
Yeah.
With short-term rentals, the first one is okay, you get a couple messages a weekend. The second one is okay. The third is okay. But now all of a sudden, you bring in this wedding venue in the scene, forget it, right?
Yeah, it's a business.
Excuse me, it's a business. So now you're bringing in a real business into the model, and it takes a whole different level of commitment, a whole different level of ability. Even regular short-term rentals, if you once you have two or three, it becomes hard to manage, especially if you have another job. Now you're giving up another very important freedom, the freedom of time to actually make more money. And that's where most people get stuck. You know what? I'm no longer able to expand my portfolio and grow this because I'm giving up time. I'm already spending all my weekends. I don't have any more time. I've got a full-time W-2 job, right?
Mm.
Um, so that's where, we think there's a lot of value for people. We'd love to be able to share the value with people, and we're spending all our time in it. In fact, we also have an arm of our business. It's called Hosted by Adventure Weights. That's our brand, where we're basically co-hosting properties for others.
Mm.
These are high net worth individuals, high income individuals who have a really good W-2 job and don't want to quit it, right? They still want to be able to buy the property, write it off, and let someone else handle it for them. So we charge a smaller fee than regular property managers, and we have a whole team of people that are basically managing that property for you at a reduced commission. It's not a big number, but it allows you to buy back your time, right? And it allows you to basically focus on expanding your portfolio, on growing your wealth versus sitting and responding to guest messages. Listen, that's fun and it's glorifying. It's nice, but you know what? When you have three properties and everyone's checking in on a Thursday or Friday, and you get two messages saying, "Hey, I can't unlock the door,"
Yeah.
it gets
What's the
old really quick.
Wi-Fi or whatever? Yeah.
It takes off the fun from trying to do this and grow it and to build your wealth, and that's where the challenge is. So we've actually found, so we're co-hosting about 20 properties right now, and it's growing at a steady pace. And I think what we're going to end up with is we're going to find these investors, the clients that we work with. We're basically going to go and buy one or two properties a year, and in second year turn it over to us. That's what I think is going to end up happening. So it'll become almost a turnkey service. We also offer the coaching upfront to help people get into the business. So we coach them, we help them acquire them. They manage it for the first few months, take the write off, and then in 2020, the next year, basically we take over and manage for them. Kind of almost a full turnkey service is where we're headed at the moment.
Smart.
Yeah, so we'll see. Again, luckily for us, we've invested the time and the effort up front to try and put those systems in place. Yeah, I mean, I can be gone for a month and my team will handle all of the work, right? And it'll be okay. So
Yeah.
that's the important thing. So coming back to your earlier comment, you're really looking to jump in with this, get that one multi-unit property that you have downtown, convert it to a short-term rental model, and
Yep.
you potentially are looking for other short-term rentals, or even convert the property next door someday, maybe, to a wedding venue if that's of interest, right? So we're also, by the way, I'm part of a deal with some other investors where we're trying to take down this apartment complex in Hartford, Connecticut, downtown
Mm.
Hartford, Connecticut, where we will convert some of the units to short-term and midterm rentals.
Smart.
So
Yeah. We
so
just we just got back from Connecticut Beautiful spot. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Connecticut, some of those homes out there are like awesome, mind-blowing, large estate properties where you're like, whoa.
Yep.
So where do you live at? Do you live in Austin?
I live in Dallas.
Okay, so you live in Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something that my wife and I were throwing around is, obviously we live in Snohomish, so I think the first focus is always like, well, let's get some inventory in our own market, but then there's these other markets, right, where you can do really well. Have you expanded outside of your Dallas? Well, Austin's not close to Dallas, so I mean it's several hours away, but are you guys expanding into other states and stuff like that?
So we currently own properties in Texas, Oklahoma, and Alabama.
Okay,
We
interesting.
manage properties remotely in California, in Utah, in Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Florida. Yeah, I think that's it for now. So this
Okay.
is the big mindset. This is where a lot of investors kind of get a little hung up. Okay, it's hard to try to have that vision of how do I invest in this STR that's kind of a hands-on kind of a thing remotely so that it can be sustainable and can grow. To me, the number one priority when I'm trying to invest my money in a property is that it needs to give me appropriate returns.
Yeah.
If the return is not significantly better than a long term, it's not worth it, right? So I don't want the location of the property to really hold me back. So our model has always been doesn't matter where the property is in the country. It's all about building the right processes, systems, and the team in place, and we're able to do it. So none of that is rocket science. And I'll tell you what, you don't need to be restricted to your own market. There are so many different markets you can go into. 90% of clients that we work with are remote. They don't live in the same city. I've got clients who live in Washington State and are investing in Oklahoma, in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, right? It's all about
Interesting.
those systems and processes, and it's absolutely possible. I can give you 100 examples of how that can be done.
Cool. Right on.
Yeah, no, so that's definitely. I would certainly take out the location barrier from your head because absolutely possible, and you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
So tell me, what does? Let me ask you this. What does 5 years from now look like for you? Where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve, and where are you going to be?
Well, it's multi-dimensional depending on, you know, what category of focus. I mean, with the real estate, yeah, you're right. Like giving up the W-2 or giving up the owner benefits of owning a company where you're profiting, millions of dollars a year and you can kind of just selling it and then putting that money into investments in the markets and blah blah blah. It's definitely a different ball game. So anyway, the goal was that we wanted to build up our real estate business and through different either JV partnerships or uh, taking ownership stake in different home service companies, et cetera. But basically, looking to get the passive income to 100,000 a year is the initial goal over the next 24 months. And so we're really looking at breaking that down, which isn't 5 years like you asked, but I mean that's my short-term vision is to get how do we reverse engineer 100,000 a month in passive income, um, and then and that's kind of the process that we're going through now is just reverse engineering that and figuring out how many properties we would need to own, in what areas. And I think that's kind of the main focus right now is more the real estate side. And then there's obviously business stuff too. More in the traditional sense to the business, just acquiring ownership in different companies. But I mean, ideally, my goal is to have a management company where I have uh, a portfolio of home service companies, not necessarily even home service companies, like just investing in companies where I can get passive income through those companies on a monthly basis, have a relatively decent equity stake in those companies. And then that would be the one company. And then the other company would be our real estate holdings company that's going to do more of the Airbnb and even in some long-term rental like the commercial building that rents to
Yeah.
Pure Dry. But we're aiming for that 100K a month, and just to get there as quick as we can.
No, that's awesome, and I'll tell you what, the 100K a month is a good target to shoot for. Not impossible, depending on the type of property you go into, and especially short-term rentals. And this is a big. I think you're looking at it in a very intelligent way, because it's also, a lot of people love multifamily, nothing wrong with it, right?
Yep.
And I think in long-term wealth generation, multifamily has its own place, and that's great, right? But for people like us who are looking to grow the immediate cash flow and the cash needs up front so that you can scale and expand, that was my whole goal, right? I've never, I'm an immigrant from India. I don't have, a war chest full of cash. In order for me to scale up early, I need to have all cylinders firing completely to actually scale up.
Yeah.
So, short-term rentals became the natural way for me to invest and grow, including the ones we're going to launch now. We're going to be at 9 properties, and we're managing about 20 others for other people, right?
Yeah.
This initial cash infusion that we're getting now from these short-term rentals has the ability to fuel us for the longer term, at which point we can go ahead and diversify into other areas.
Yeah.
The big thing for us, and I'm going to ask you this question, what do you think is, do you believe that short-term rentals are kind of passive, or do you feel that, hey, it's still a very active and involved business? What do you think?
I think it's a business. Yeah. I mean, I think it can be passive depending on, like you said, you got clients that are just, hey, you handle it turnkey, but I certainly think it can be a business too, where you build out the fundamental, like what I look at it from the experience, threshold. What's the experience going to be for your brand when they come to one of your short-term rentals, right? Is there flowers on the kitchen table when they get there and a greeting card? Is there, that kind of hotel feeling where there's nice soaps and all these
Mm-hmm.
things and it's welcoming? Or is it more, uh, you know, dry and just check in, here you go, check out, right? But obviously you got to build, as you got to build your cleaning team, and you got to build probably some virtual assistants to be checking on things. You got to be very aggressive about getting 5-star reviews. Aggressive as in, creating an experience that justifies a 5-star experience, right? For them to write. But I think that's a business more than it is. Like for me owning my commercial building, it's 30 grand a month in rent that I collect. That that's not a business. I just get mailbox money,
Yep.
and obviously I have a mortgage payment to pay on the building, but that to me is different. I think the short-term rental could be either or, right? Like you could get a handful of properties and have it be relatively passive by partnering with somebody like yourself to manage them. And or you can make that a full-blown gig where you build out a team and a marketing team and your own brand, like you've done with a website where you list all your own properties on your own thing and really get invested in the community and partnering with like GoBundance. When they do an event, maybe they'll rent a house in Wyoming, and it's a big giant
Yeah.
home, and that's a
Yeah.
business, where you're recruiting that. So yeah, I think it can be either one. And for me, I want it to be a business almost where, we want to get an office. We want to get out of our house, man. Like I sold my company and now I'm sitting in my house every day and I'm like, I got to get out of here. We got to create a different. So that's what we want. We want to go to our office. We want to have our our uh our weekly meetings, IDS meetings is what we call them, identify, discuss, solve, and run it like a business and have targets. And I think that's fun.
That's spectacular. I'll tell you why. I commend you on that statement you just made. 90% of people who invest in short term rentals will never get to the point you already are at. And I'll tell you why. People tend to forget that this is a hospitality business.
Yeah.
You're creating that experience. Someone's actually giving you money, hard earned money, that they want to come to. They're giving you that money so they can come spend time with their family, with their friends, they're coming there for the experience. This is going to be their one fun memory of the year,
Yeah.
and you have that
Yeah.
opportunity to create it. So I commend you on actually understanding. A lot of people don't get this. Oh, I'm just going to buy this Airbnb and I'm going to put this on the market, and it's, I'm going to get a tax break and I'm going to make a lot of cash flow. That's awesome. But
Yeah.
you're talking about creating an experience.
Yeah.
right?
And
Which,
you and I have maybe even stayed at the homes where they don't treat it like a business. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like we went to a prop we went to, where were we at? Malibu. You know, we were going to California. We're like, all right, let's rent a big house on the ocean,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Man, what a dump.
Yeah.
It was such a dump. There was dirty. It looked like it was a party house. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I would imagine people that aren't passionate about the business of hospitality, you're going to give people bad experiences. And I think there's a powerful vision there. And I think there's a powerful mission. Um, and just kind of the core values that you have about approaching this business is to create memories that last a lifetime.
Exactly.
But I
Exactly.
mean, you could just as easily approach it as, you're literally just looking at it from the tangible money in, money out, money in, money out,
Yeah.
money. I think it's a lot more than that, right? So
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, it's actually, the intention is there, the focus is there, the attention is there. Really hard to execute and truly make that happen, right?
yeah,
But we always strive to get there. In our case, when we have the wedding venue, that's a lifetime memory that people are going to keep about our property.
yeah,
Hey, we
yeah,
got
it's
married
awesome.
there. That's something for a lifetime, right? They're going to hang
Yeah,
on to that memory forever,
yep, yeah,
and we can't screw that up, right? So that's where the whole hospitality aspect of it, that if you truly want to scale, you want to just buy one a year, whatever, and just kind of play along, that's okay. But somebody like yourself who's looking to go and build a real business around it,
yeah,
I'm glad you already have the mindset, because I've met so many investors who are like, oh, I want to build this big STR portfolio, but they don't understand what goes into it.
yeah,
Even today, some of the properties that we co-host, we talk to them about, hey, let's not go get the linens from Walmart. Let's go get commercial grade linens,
right.
and it's all got to be white, and it's all got to be you never go into a JW Marriott or a Park Hyatt and you see a gray sheet, right?
Yeah,
You want the white sheets, and it's going to happen. It's going to get messed up, but you need to replace it every 6 to 12 months. You're going to command a premium, so put some money aside. Let's do it. Let's do it the right way, right?
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
make sure we stock it up with coffee, because I don't want to wake up. I'm up early, and I don't want to wake up in the morning and find there's not a single cup of coffee I can have.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's that experience, and actually, ironically, that's how my experience started off. Before I bought the first one, I went to that location and I rented a cabin. And when I woke up in the morning and I didn't find any coffee, I said, "This is exactly how I'm not going to do things." Every property that we
Yeah,
own has to be stocked up. Every property that we manage has to be stocked up, because you know what? You can't do that. We spent a
yeah,
lot of money to come stay here, and now all I can remember is that management company didn't even have coffee or even like shampoo in the thing. They had a little bar soap, and I'm like, ain't gonna work, buddy. I mean,
it's
if
gotta
you,
it's gotta look good. It's gotta smell good, man.
yeah,
Like, yeah, all those things. There's a town near us called Seabrook, and it's a really charming town. But when you go to those Airbnbs, I mean, these people go all in. Like, there's bicycles, and
yeah.
I mean, they create whole activity logs, and I mean, they're really creating an experience, and I think that's pretty neat.
No, that's awesome, and it's good to see that you're in the right mindset. So Ben, let me ask you, what's your timeline like? Is this vision? You mentioned a couple years, but are you looking to make those moves now? And I'll tell you why I'm asking this question,
Yeah,
and I'll tell you my philosophy around where we are in this whole short-term rental market at the moment. So, what's your
yeah,
timeline look like?
yeah. So I think the only thing that's maybe creating a little bit of a brake pedal motion, or at least not pushing the gas pedal down, is really just analyzing the market in general. I mean, and depending on who you speak to, most people think rates are going to drop down a bit. When that happens, it's going to create kind of a flurry in the market again. And so it's all about timing. I mean, you obviously you're buying real estate, right? Like, you don't want to just go in and overpay for a property, and you still have to be an astute investor on that cadence. But yeah, I mean, we've got the liquidity, to be able to do it. We've got the banking relationships to be able to go and do it. I think it's just there's no inventory on the market right now. I think, at least where we're at, inventory is at a historic low, and so the conditions are not as
Ideal.
primed for me personally, where it's like, okay, what, you know what I mean? So, which, either lends itself to, okay, do you build an off market strategy where you're actually building a team to create off market opportunities? That to me seems a little bit like too heavy right this
Yeah.
moment to
Yeah.
start getting into all that. Um, but yeah, I mean, no matter where I look, it just seems like people are really holding off on listing their property because they don't want to sell for less than they think they could. And then obviously buyers are waiting for rates to go. So I think it's just a matter of timing. We want 2024 to be our year where we really capitalize and go in and make some big moves. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what your perspective is on it too.
So, we are identifying properties right now. We just put in an offer on another potential wedding venue. I haven't heard back yet. Today's the deadline. Um, but my philosophy is that interest rates today are somewhere, if you go with a DSCR or a commercial loan, somewhere in the 8% range right now.
Yeah.
And I do believe that this is actually holding back a lot of investors from getting into the market because it's a mindset. To me, it's just another part of the equation. Whether it's if it's at 18, but if the property numbered, it penciled out the right way, and it actually,
Doesn't really matter.
it doesn't matter. It's an equation. I actually like it. Hey, let it be 10%, and if it pencils out, I know that in 3 years, when the interest rates drop or whatever it is, whatever the time frame is, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I know that at some point I can do a refinance and my cash flow is going to get that much more better. Awesome, let's go, right? I actually find that properties are sitting on the market much longer right now, and they're willing to accept under asking. None of my offers will be at asking price anymore, right? They're not. So I'm insulating myself to the downside and I'm preparing for the upside if the numbers pencil out today. And that's where you came back, running those numbers and really knowing and understanding the numbers. If they pencil out today at 8%, I know that if it stays at 8%, that's okay. The numbers are really good, and if it goes to 6%, I can do a refi, and my numbers. And now I've acquired a property potentially with little to no competition because people don't want to jump in right now, and I've probably bought the property at under asking,
Yeah.
and maybe slightly under the actual value of the property. And when the interest rates drop, all the other investors come in. They start buying properties again because that's a mindset. That whole number, the interest rate is just one part of the equation, but that mindset drives people to act in such a manner where they'll come back in and they'll pay 50 grand more for a property at 6% versus paying 100,000 less at 8%. Which one's better? Right? They could have, the spread is 150 grand, even though they're saving it, but the mindset says, oh, 6%. Do the math and see how much difference it makes, a couple $100 a month, right?
Yeah.
If your deal is so close from being a good versus a bad deal, you're too close to begin with. You shouldn't even be doing the deal. If it's not a good deal at 6%, at 8%, and it's a great deal at 6%, there's something off there. So something's not right.
What math equation are you running to determine if it's a thumbs up or thumbs down on a property?
So we actually have a calculator that we use. It's a cash on cash calculator, right? That we basically use to estimate the revenue. The revenue estimation comes from a number of different platforms. We use we've got AirDNA, we've got Price Labs, we use go into Airbnb and look at comps and all that stuff. And we basically estimate what the property is capable of producing from a revenue perspective. Then we basically do all the math, take out your debt service, take out your all your expenses and everything, and we could calculate a cash on cash on it. So it's pretty straightforward. The challenging part there is making sure you know and understand what the property is able to generate in terms of revenue, which actually gets really hard, extremely hard, once you start pivoting from a regular, hey, it's just a beach house or a regular cabin, to, hey, I'm going to have weddings there. Now the risk is higher, the numbers are higher, but and it's not a science. The changes you make, the improvements you make to the property can wildly change those numbers.
Right.
So,
Vision. Yeah.
So if it's going to be more a test versus it's, hey, this is the number, let's go for it. You'll have the way we handle it is we have a worst case number. Worst case, I know as an Airbnb, this is what it's going to do, and everything else is upside. If it underwrites at that worst case scenario, then I start bringing the additional value to help maximize the return on that property. The deal I'm underwriting right now, if it does do what it thinks as a wedding venue, at 8% interest rate, my number pencils out at about 25% cash on cash return.
Yeah, super strong.
And that doesn't include my tax breaks, right? So this is 25% cash on cash return, not including my tax breaks that I get for having a short-term rental. Not, the depreciation is not counted in it. At 25%, at 8%, it's great. If it goes down to 6, it actually goes to almost 31%. I'll take it all day long. But the only reason we're able to achieve that is because we're doing the weddings.
Yeah,
So
the wedding business drives really solid revenue for sure.
correct. So it's a different model altogether. And again, you can go buy a regular cabin in the Smokies or something like that, and they're all good. Yeah, you'll still make some money. But for people like us, we're trying to build real businesses and accelerate our wealth building to try and keep our freedoms, right? Time, money, and everything else. We need that cash flow now to really scale and build that as soon as possible because you know it is, I think it's a lot more sustainable. Most
Yeah.
investors don't look at it that way, and that's why they get into trouble. That's why you hear all this noise about, oh, the properties are not doing well. Most people I talk to, when they say the property is not doing well right now, they're not spending nearly enough time managing the revenue management, marketing, even just keeping their listing up. And it's a challenge. Things are harder now, but the opportunity to do it right is out there.
Have you seen a slowdown in the volume of rental on your Airbnbs just with the economic challenges that people are facing, generally speaking, just the middle class folks that are wanting to go, hey, let's go here and do an Airbnb. Have you seen a slowdown in it, or is it staying pretty consistent?
So in some locations we've seen a slowdown, but one of the things that we've done very consciously is we've invested in properties that are larger.
Okay.
I think the smallest property we have in our own portfolio, which is being renovated right now, is going to sleep 8, right? So there's no 1 and 2 unit, 1 and 2 bedroom kind of places, and the smallest sleeps 8, but mostly they all sleep around 14 to 16. When it's a larger property like that, it's much easier for 3 and 4 families to get together, share the price, share the cost, and it's way cheaper than getting on a plane and going somewhere else or going and renting an Airbnb themselves. Brings them together as a family, brings friends together, they hang out. All they care about is the property, the amenities, the experience we're creating for them. And honestly, that's all people are looking at. They just want to reconnect, right? So
Yeah.
that's what we're doing. So most of our properties are actually larger properties that can have multi-generational families or multiple families come together. So it's been pretty stable for us, been pretty consistent.
No, it's good. I dig it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's where So the opportunity, in my opinion, is still out there, and a lot of people are there was a season when people were it was the flavor of the season at the moment. There's a lot of people still talking about no, it's not a good option. I just see it as it's there, it's out there, and I do believe there's risk associated with it, but yeah, you know what? As long as you're making informed decisions and you're making the right choices, I think you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Avoid getting out over your skis, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, for
Taking on
sure.
too much debt. I mean, if something really hit the fan, but yeah, man, like I think I think the other challenge too is just different jurisdictions making rulings against short-term rental. I'm starting to see in our area where cities are trying to clamor down on that, and so that could be a potential risk, right? Like you buy one, you've got all your properties in that area, and then the city votes and says, "Hey, we're shutting that down." But whatever, you
Yeah,
just roll
we
with the punches.
yeah we try not to buy in places where there's too much regulation or the city's voting it down. In
Mm.
Texas we have this unique thing called ETJ. I don't know if you've heard of that.
What is it?
It's called ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction. So the ETJ areas are actually outside of cities, basically in the county, and the cities have no jurisdiction. So you're pretty free as long as it's not in an HOA and it's an ETJ. No one's going to stop you. Generally, we've not had any issues there, and there's no. It basically falls under the county, so nobody really cares about it much, and it's kind of out in the wild. So
Yeah.
allows us to create that experience even more, and which is a good thing.
Okay.
Now, Certain markets, regulations are not necessarily bad, especially, there's some markets that we look at where there is only a certain number of permits available, which is great because it allows you to buy a property and have a property with basically a closed market. They're not giving out more permits than a certain number. Once they reach those permit numbers, you have to apply for it and you're in a queue, you're waiting in a queue for someone else basically return their permit before you can get it. So the competition becomes very limited, so it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Interesting.
But you know what's important, Ben? I think this is where I hope I've opened your eyes to the possibility of investing anywhere to find those markets. That's the key. Find the markets. If you're looking at the local market, it becomes really hard. Now you're tied into the regulations, inventory, all the other things that go along with it. But once you opened up and you're saying, I'm open to looking all over the country to try and find the right opportunity and the right investments, knowing that I can put in place the processes and the systems and the teams as needed to actually run these successfully. If you're able to take out the limiting belief that you can't do this in like halfway across the country, all of a sudden the possibilities are endless now.
How do you feel about the properties that are on the, let's call it ultra luxury, right? So 15,000 a night, 10,000 a night. We're talking oceanfront property in Cabo San Lucas or whatever, Is that because when I sold my company, we went to Mexico and we rented a house and it was just amazing, man. But there was full-time staff and stuff. And I'm looking at the house and I'm like, probably a 12 to $18 million house, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was 18 grand a night or something like that, right? And so we paid it. We stayed there for a week. We had a great time. But I'm looking at that and I'm like, there's a market for this. And I'm like, if we're paying this, there's probably a lot of people that are. So it's like, how do you feel about the ultra luxury market as far as acquiring a property like that you can both benefit from on a personal level, so you can take your own family there and hang out and have a beautiful property, but then also leveraging it as is the short-term rental side of it? Have you ever looked into it or know people that are kind of hitting in that box?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. The property, our biggest property, which we have sleeps 22 people. It's on 10 acres outside of Austin. Our average nightly rate on that property is about $3,000. In 2023, it was about 2,300, and all the bookings we have for 2024 is about 28 to 2,900, something like that. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah.
But I personally know a gentleman who's managing a property that's worth about $15 million.
Yeah.
That property will do over $1 million this year.
Okay.
So it is ultra luxury, helipad. Every week they've got Ferraris there. Helicopters landing, the whole 9 yards, man. I saw this property last week, and it is unbelievable, right? Everything you can think of. I think it's 20,000 square feet. Unbelievable property. Okay.
Wow.
The question I'm going to ask you, and this is where I get reined in by my wife all the time on this, because the philosophy is you invest your money and get the maximum return where you can, unless you've got so much money that the pride of ownership on a $10 million property or a $20 million property makes you feel real good and doesn't affect your overall financial situation. Great.
Right.
But if not, invest the money where it's going to make the biggest return. Go down there once a year, twice a year, and spend $15,000 a night. You'll still come out ahead, right?
Yeah.
So this
That
is
makes
where
more sense.
It's not for me. Don't get me wrong. I get the same feelings about, hey, this is awesome. I need to own one of these things. And my wife's like, listen, let's go invest where you can. Let's get the maximum return, and then we can go blow the money wherever, right?
Yeah, let your passive income go pay for the experience that you want, not be burdened with it. Yeah, because on a $15 million mortgage, you're probably at the 100 grand a month.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're financing the property, right? Like you're at 100 grand a month, and so you're really just at a break even, maybe even losing money.
Yep.
Doesn't really make sense unless you're super mega wealthy. Yeah.
So one of the very first things I talk to people when I'm coaching them is I help them differentiate and say, all right, in their minds, I help them segregate and say, Is this a lifestyle asset? Is this a personal use lifestyle asset, or is it an investment?
Yeah.
Typically, the place you'll want to go stay, personal use lifestyle asset for your own pride and joy of your family and your enjoyment, typically will not cash flow that well because the prices are already way up there, right? That's just who you are, man. You're an entrepreneur. You've done this. You built a business, sold it. You're going to places that, the prices are already up there. So typically it won't work out, but you might just find something that way. Really hard, really, really hard. So
Yeah.
we were
Makes
in,
sense.
we went to Aruba, I think back in October. We stayed in this beautiful
Nice.
condo. It was unbelievable. And I obviously went down the path of, hey, we got to buy one of these. And the numbers wouldn't pencil out. Now, again, there's options, there's
Mhm.
things you can do, but it's pretty hard. So
Yeah.
break it up in your mind and say, one's this, and then if I'm going to buy a lifestyle asset, I may use the rental revenue to subsidize it, but know that you're going to end up, spending some money for your own personal enjoyment there, which is okay.
Yeah.
As long as you do it with your eyes wide open, it's okay.
Got to get the 100K a month passive coming in, then we can look at that. Yeah.
Yep, I'm sure you'll get there. You're on a trajectory. You've got the right mindset. You've got the right vision around it. Sounds like you're mentally in the state where I was maybe about 3 years ago, starting to add properties into the portfolio, building a brand, building a company, a hospitality business, and you're right there. And I guarantee you'll be there. 3 to 5 years, you'll be there for sure, if not sooner. I think it's going to be way sooner.
Yeah, man. Well,
Awesome.
we feel good about it.
Yeah. So Ben, what else can I do for you? I'm going to thank you for taking your time today to have this conversation. Really good conversation. Good to see that there's other people out there who are thinking and feeling the same way, and trying to do the same things, which is great. So what else can I answer for you today? What are those things, questions that are bothering you? What can I help with?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think you mentioned a couple things. Like for somebody that's, newer getting into it, it sounds like Air DNA and Price Lab, like there's some core things as far as developing, let's just call it a blueprint for like what you need to invest into
Yeah.
if you're going to start actually taking some bigger steps towards it, right? So like what would be your top 5 recommendations for me knowing where I'm at? Again, no Air DNAs, I don't have any of that stuff. And you're actually wanting to create a business out of it. Like where did you start? Where would you say these are like the top 5 things that you need to, or maybe even not top 5, but you get the idea.
No, no, I get it. And the biggest mistake people make. You already have this vision. You already think you're going to do this, right?
Yeah.
Spend the money up front to get the systems and processes in place. I started my systems and processes with my first property.
Mm,
When I bought the first property, I said I'm going to do all of it. I started putting it down. I got the right systems in place, put them in place, and when I got to, I think, property number 3 or 4, I hired my first VA. Most people don't. Most people still have 10 properties. They won't hire their VA, right? But that $10,000 a year that the VA is going to cost you is priceless because it opens up the ability to expand even further, right? So
yeah.
to me, get your systems and processes up front and early. So when I started trying to buy short-term rentals right in the beginning, and I looked around, there was nobody. Today you can go online and Google, and you'll find 1,000 gurus saying do this, this, and this. That's great. I didn't have anyone to help me through the process. I actually had a spectacular deal that I walked away from. I lost 7 figures on that deal. Okay,
Ah,
because people wouldn't talk about it. People would not discuss the whole cost segregation piece. Now we all talk about it all day long. Back then they wouldn't talk about how it truly affects your tax return, and how it helps you shelter your W-2 income, right? That's a big one. Uh, People wouldn't talk about the systems and processes, so I had to learn everything the hard way. And this is exactly the reason why I decided I'm going to coach people. So I've coached about 40 people in the last 3 years, helping them get into this process. Now, again, I'm happy to send you a list of systems and processes that you should put in place, and you can start doing it. So yeah, I'll get you a list for sure.
oh, that'd be awesome, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
no, it's been great. I love talking to passionate business people,
yeah, yeah.
that are doing good things. I'm excited to hear what you got going on, and I love that you're doing the the wedding venue thing, man, because I think it's a unique I think it's a unique thing that not a lot of people are really pushing on, and I'd love to stay in touch with you and kind of hear how that continues to succeed for you.
Yeah, so last year we did 430,000 on that property,
It's awesome.
and this year we'll do over 500. So if I could sell every one of mine and replace it with one of these properties, I'd do it all day long. It's just so hard to get, and the challenging part isn't even that. Okay, I was talking to a DSCR lender yesterday, right? 2 days ago. Basically, I quit my W-2 job, so I don't have that W-2 job anymore to depend on for my income for loans, right?
Yeah.
So a DSCR lender will look at the revenue from the property to underwrite the property.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I have a property that is exactly the same as what I want to go acquire, and we did 430,000. He says I can only underwrite at 300,000 or 290 or 280 because that's what AirDNA says. So AirDNA does not reflect when you start getting creative with your property and your deal and how you're doing it.
Yeah.
The numbers are not there. You won't find those numbers anywhere. So that's something that you're going to have to go with what you feel and how you feel about it, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's how it is. There's no system or process out there that's going to benchmark. One of the things that you can look at is you can look at the wedding venues close by and say, what are they charging? And most wedding venues don't have lodging. They don't have place for anyone to sleep.
Yep.
So if it's an Airbnb, large Airbnb that sleeps 20 or 30 people and has a venue, now that's the game changer. So there's a little more uncertainty around the numbers when you're doing a wedding venue, and it takes a lot more effort to actually make that happen. So as long as you're going in and you're underwriting the deal properly, you'll be fine. So that's how I approach this.
Yeah, it's smart, man. I like it.
Awesome. So Ben, thank you for agreeing to be on this call. I appreciate your time very much, and I hope I've been able to add some value to you. And you just got to reach out. You know where to find me now. Reach out, ask anything you want, any questions you have. If you are interested in joining the coaching program, you may. I'm not going to even try to sell that to you. But if there's, I set up the call to be of service, to be able to help with what I can. And if you see value, want anything else, just reach out.
Right on, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us on Vacation Rental Mastery. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in for our next episode, where the journey to financial freedom and lifestyle flexibility continues. Here's to your success in the exciting world of vacation rentals.